Yesterday, the deadline passed to reunite over 100 migrant children under 5 with their parents. As of today, less than half were back together, and some of the ones who were did not recognize their parents. But Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar still is claiming they're doing a great job and great things. Take a look.
It is one of the great acts of American generosity and charity, what we are doing for these unaccompanied kids who are smuggled into our country or come across illegally. We've saved kids' lives by keeping them from being with some really evil people, some of them, or keeping them with people who are not their parents, keeping them with people that a kid accused of being a child abuser. We're doing work to protect these children, protect child welfare, even while we work to, as expeditiously as possible, reunite them with their parents.
Ay, ay, ay. Protect them from their mothers. That's what basically this topic is so upsetting. You know, yeah. I feel as though we're in the middle of the politics of cruelty in this country. That there's a cruel vibe going on that I did not ever experience in my lifetime on this planet. Yeah. You know, that Trump wants to cut Obamacare, which would, of course, we all know that would eliminate health care. He wants to cut food stamps. And Medicaid, which, by the way, Medicaid is for poor people. When your mother needs nursing care and you have run out of money, Medicaid kicks in. So keep in mind that you will have to take care of your mother. People need to understand what is going to happen.
Trump also said the solution was to tell people, quote, tell people not to come to our country illegally. That's the solution. And you often hear that from the other side of the argument. And what always hits me is that poem I saw on Instagram that I read this once before. No one puts their children on a boat unless the water is safer than the land. So it's less about where they're running to and where they're running from is what people should be focusing on. If this is their best option, that's very telling.
Of course.
I think, go ahead.
I think the term cruelty is just so apropos. I mean, ripping children away from their mothers, children under 5, we now know that there are a little under 3,000 children that were separated from their families and their parents. And I just, do they have no decency? Aren't these officials parents? I think that these are offenses against humanity. They're human rights offenses, and the people responsible for orchestrating it and carrying it out should be impeached, or we should demand their resignation.
I agree with you.
Well, this whole situation has been a cluster. We've talked about this at length, but the devil is in the details on this. And the New York Times is reporting that there have already been 14 adults that have been disqualified from being reunited with their, quote, children because they had a history of child cruelty and drug crime. So there are some people who have brought children over who aren't their actual children. And my mother does a ton of work with child trafficking and human trafficking, and I know way more about it than any human should. And it's really disgusting and horrific. There are people that literally take children and sell them into sex trafficking. And I think that's right here what I would emphasize if I was working for the Trump administration is that we totally screwed up. We need to reunite actual families with their children.
You just said the magic word that they will never say. That's what makes it so hard.
But I do think the process of waiting longer to make sure we get this right because we got it so wrong, because God forbid we come here on this show and they're like, we reunited the wrong kid with the wrong parent and they got sold into sex slavery. You think there's protesting now? It would be exponentially worse.
Well, here's my biggest problem with all of this. There was no reason to do this. There was no reason to do this initially. Because, as we say on the show all the time, Obama deported more people than just about anybody. He was called the deporter-in-chief. But he deported families. Okay, so there was no reason for them to screw with this because this was not broken. So this is on you. This is on you. And frankly, you know, you are absolutely right. We don't want to reunite the wrong kids with the wrong people, but that was some BS what that man was spewing.
But I think what you should say is, again,
and you have.
The messaging is so wrong that, again, I think it's such a political disaster on so many different levels, but it could get exponentially worse if we are not patient with the process with reuniting families.
If they don't do it the way they should.
Can it get worse also if it continues and these children are just out there without really supervision of any
we have nobody
quality care? By the way, can I ask a question?
Where
are the pictures of what's going on? Where is the video? Why are they not
They're
showing
refusing
us?
to allow people into some
Why?
of these detention centers, and I think that's very telling. It's
Yeah.
very chilling. The other thing that we haven't mentioned about this is that this is very much like the privatization of prisons. People are making millions
Yes.
and millions of dollars with these government contracts, with these detention centers.
Yes.
This is a lot about money also.
I forgot what I was going to say.
It's an extremely emotional issue for everyone on every side, and I just think we should be looking at solutions. And I really implore the Trump administration to say what I just said, because again, I think when you start your messaging out with they should be grateful we're doing them this great justice. I understand it's an administration that ran on hardline immigration. I get that a lot of Americans agree with that, but I think even saying that to begin with is where, you know, people get so emotional and sort of.
I think also
off the
we
rails.
have to take a look at Lady Liberty, because immigrants have been running to America where there was a better life. And so this idea that somehow people coming from Mexico or Guatemala or wherever are not fleeing hardships because they want to get in here and lay around is as offensive as anything else.
Yeah.
You know, we have to figure out, I guess we have to figure out who we are. You know, folks, you know, you're going to be voting soon. This is in your hands.
You can't
we
vote.
can sit here and bitch and moan, but it's really up to us to get in those voting booths and vote what's good for the country, regardless of who you are. You may feel differently than Megan feels or than I feel, but it is your right and your duty as an American to vote. Stop sitting around.
All right. They're also.
I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you like that.
It's okay. People can be
came
yelled
back
at
to
to
me.
vote.
They're also having problems with kids who don't recognize their parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I have a 2-year-old and he knows me as mama. So a few weeks ago we started practicing. I said if he were ever taken away from me anywhere in his life, he wouldn't know my name. So like Max and I have been practicing teaching him what our names are.
Yeah.
And these little kids, they are not recognizing their parents.
And in fact, the government doesn't even know who they separated, and so they're making people pay for their own DNA tests. I mean, it's just
Unbelievable.
It's been reported.
We should fact check
It's,
that.
you know.
There's a lot of
By something other than
bad
okay.
stuff going on.
Doesn't sound accurate.
Pay attention
It
because
sounds incredulous because
I
what's
just-
going on
if
is
they're,
incredulous.
If they're too
We'll be
poor
right
to
back.
make it across the board.